from the team 我是小美女。Okay. We are very glad to be here to be with you. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So we are Team Carpe Vinum, and here today we have Janet, Judy, and Jack with me. And I'm the reporter of our group. It's an honor to be here with you all. Thank you.
你们等一下给พ่อ什么讲？因为等一下是讲，等一下给พ่อ
他说可以，那我们可以拍你的，可以啊，可以，尽量拍没关系。
Good morning, everyone. I'm the reporter from the team.我是小美女. And today I will introduce the program Curie Point Engine. Okay, let's start with problem statement. Make a nickel disc that can rotate freely around its axis. Place a magnet near the edge of the disc and hit the side of it. The disc starts to rotate. Investigate the parameters affecting the rotation and optimize the design for steady motion. And that's our device. We have a magnet and 3 different radius of the nickel disc and a spiral length. And we put some support on those discs and become our final model. Here I will show you the motion of the disc. First, we will put a magnet near the side of the disc, and then we will put a fire below the disc. And about 10 to 20 seconds, the disc starts to rotate. Like this, yeah. Okay. And I will show you the video. Okay, about 10 to 20 seconds, the nickel disc will rotate. Yeah. Okay. Okay. And before we enter the experiment, I want to talk some theory at the first. And the first theory is the Curie-Weiss law. And from the formula in the chart, we can see the relation of the temperature and the magnetic susceptibility. And if the temperature gets higher, the magnetic susceptibility will go down. And when the temperature above the Curie point, the susceptibility is 0. Yeah, just this is magnetic. And the second one is magnetization. And as we know, the magnetic susceptibility of the ferromagnetic will far bigger than 1. And if the magnetic field is a constant, then the magnetization of the ferromagnetic will be bigger than the paramagnetic. And the Stephen-Boltzmann radiation law and the heat conduction is, we try to explain why the nickel disc can rotate freely sometimes. Okay. And that's my outline. First, I will talk about the parameters, and the next is result, and explanation, analysis, and the last one is conclusion. And we have three parameters. The first is the angle between the magnet and the nickel disc, and the second is the radius of the nickel disc, and the last one is the fire precision. The fire precision is at here and here and here. Yeah, and theta equal 90 is like here and at here, and the zero is at here. Okay. And that's the chart of the parameter of the magnet angle, and we can see that when theta is 45, it will bigger than the other. And from the omega t, we can see the steady motion is at the period of the middle in the next part. And the parameter of the radius shows when the radius is 4 cm, when radius is 4 cm, and its slope will bigger than the 5 cm and 3 cm. And from the omega t, we can see the 4 cm. The place that happened the steady motion is at the period of the middle in the last. And from parameter C, we can see that from parameter of the fire precision, we can see when the theta is 45 degrees, there are the significant rotation, and the black one and the green one is all make the disc rotate the same direction, but the slope of the red one is slightly go up. That means if I place a fire at here, the direction will different from the two. Okay, and that's our result. We can found when the theta is 45 degrees, it will be bigger than the 19 and the 10 degrees. And from the second parameter, we can know the radius is 4 cm will be bigger than the 2. And from the last parameter, we can know when the theta is 45 degrees will be bigger than the 2. And I want to explain why the 45 degrees will have the significant rotation. And we can find the distance and the magnitude of the magnetic field, and we can know if the distance increase and the magnitude of the magnetic field will decrease. And that's our magnetic field vector. We draw it along the magnetic line. Yeah. And if we hit this side and wait for the those dipole will lose its magnet because of the heat agitation. And the red one is the virtual component of the magnetic vector. So most of the torque will cancel each other, so the shift is small. And that's 45, and that's the 45 degree situation. And the same we put the fire on it in the wait the disc to become the paramagnetic, and it will lose its magnetic. So few of the torque will cancel each other, and the shift will be bigger than the 2. And the last one is because of its magnet is smaller than the two sides of the magnet, so the torque will smaller. Okay, and that's my analysis. And according to Newton's second law for rotation, we can know that when the motion of the inertia is bigger, then they need to making rotation, and the torque that to making rotation will have to bigger. So that's why the 5 cm is smaller. The shape of the 5 cm is smaller than the other. So that's my last conclusion. When the relative position of the fire and magnet are horizontal or vertical, the shape will go down. And according to the motion of inertia, we can know that if the radius is increased and if the radius is bigger, then the shape will become smaller. And the last conclusion is that if the fire position will decide the way of rotating. Okay, that's my report. Thank you for listening.
Okay, it's time for the B team to solve their problem.
Alright, so, what's up? Good morning, everyone. So, Team Carpe Vinum, presenting number 13, weighing time. So, a general overview of our presentation today. First of all, we'll have proper identification of the prompt, and then we'll talk about our hypothesis of the measurements, and then our experiments, and then the comparison between the experiments and the hypothesis, and also how to make it more real, closer to reality. So the first up, problem identification. Now the problem from IYPT reads, it is commonly known that an hourglass changes its weight as measured by a scale while flowing. Investigate this phenomenon. Right, so there's not much to be understood out of this. So I marked only two things, changes its weight and its phenomenon, which means we have to talk about all that affects the weight. Right, so let's dive into the definitional terms. Well, as we see, I separated the hourglass into 4 parts: top, neck, bottom, and platform. And platform representing the downward part of the bottom part. Right, so yeah. So when the first drop of sand hits the hourglass, it will be hitting on the platform of the hourglass. Right, so hypothesis. Right, so first of all, our key theorem used, the whole theory is based on Newton's second law, which he describes when the mass is stable and an object is moving at the acceleration of a, the force put onto it will be m times a. But he also describes a situation where the mass and the velocity are constantly changing, and how do we determine the force that is applied onto the object, which is shown in the second equation. Sure. So before we talk about which stages, before we talk about how we measure or the theory numbers of the hourglass, we split the motion of the hourglass into 6 stages, which is the first stage is the first drop of sand leaves the top part of the hourglass. And the second stage is the first drop of sand hits the bottom, the platform of the hourglass. Right. The third stage is the sand stream is constantly flowing, and there's a sand piling on the bottom of the hourglass. And the fourth part will be the last drop of sand leaves the neck, which is the thin part of the hourglass. Right. And the fifth stage will be the last drop of sand hits the bottom, and the sixth stage will be sand sitting peacefully in the bottom without any weight changes. Right. So before we go into theory, here are a few assumptions that we put into motion before we start investigating our theories. So the first thing is the fleck of sand starts falling from the neck. So the fleck of sand is a free falling motion. It does not start with a velocity at the neck. The second one is the cylinder of the falling sand has evenly distributed density, which means that the sand stream, we can use the volume of the sand stream times the density of the sand to determine the mass of the falling sand. And then the third one is the increased height of the already falling sand is 0, which means the sand will not pile on top. Therefore, it will not decrease the height from the neck to the platform. That is the assumption. And the fourth is fluid dynamics, friction, and all those buoyancy created by air are ignored. So let's go into our theory. So the first part is during the first stage when the sand is falling, we can see that the weight we measured is the mass of the sand plus the mass of the hourglass minus the weight of the falling sand. Now, because the sand is falling, we cannot measure its weight. So weight loss increases with time as the small edge, we could use half of gt squared to describe it. Right. So this part is more complicated. When the first speck of sand hits the bottom, through Newton's second law, we could actually calculate and understand that the first speck of sand that hits the bottom will counter the force will counter the weight loss of the falling sand, and therefore, when the first speck of sand hits the bottom, the weight will be restored. Right. And so the third part is when the sand is flowing constantly. Now, if our assumption that sand will not pile up, the third state would be an evenly at 0. The weight will be the same as when there's no sand moving. Right. But through Newton's second law, we could also see at the bottom that the weight actually increases with t. And we'll come back to that later if we have time. And the fourth part is essentially the same as the third part, except the increment of the weight will be larger. And the fifth part is the last speck of sand hitting the bottom of the hourglass. Now, for this part, we didn't use the whole hourglass as an analyzed object. We only analyzed the bottom of the sand, which, according to Newton's second law, we'll experience a sudden increase in weight after that last speck of sand hits the bottom, and we'll see that in the theory construction graph. Right. And the last stage is the weight is restored its original value. Right. So we took this graph from one of the references because we don't feel the need to create another theory graph for this. So basically, when the weight is at 0, that's the sixth stage, which is it's not moving. And when it starts tipping over, the first stage is the weight loss. The first speck of sand hasn't hit the bottom, and the second stage is the sand hits the bottom and significant weight increase. And then the third and fourth stage with sand falling smoothly, but a little above 0. And then the fifth part is the sudden increase in weight, and then it drops after the sand is just sitting there, and back to normal in the sixth one. Right. So let's go into our experiments. So for our experiments, before we go into that, I have to say some of our data are actually quite unexplainable, and we're still working on how to explain those. So we have two sets of experiments, and including in this part will be how we analyze the data. So the first experiment setup is beta funnel. Now we didn't use sand because there are a lot of experimental problems concerning the sand. The friction between sand itself will let it be stuck in the funnel of the sand, which makes it really hard to fall and therefore hard to experiment with. So we use the beads. Right. So the device consists of the blue part is a force gauge, and the paper box is the hourglass, and the funnel thing is the top part of the hourglass, and the line that holds it will be the release mechanisms. Right. So first of all, after we directly get the raw data from the experiments, we can see that there are little peaks up and downs, but we'll cancel that. And if we have time, we'll talk about how we actually did that. That's great. Right. So that is the noise cancelled data. Slide. Right. Right, so the goal of experiment 1 is to see the actual results of the theory and test whether the sponge at the bottom works or not. And we also want to test the designs and dimensions of the material. Can we actually see the phenomenon happening when the beads hit the bottom? And now this part is beads 1 is the one without a sponge, and beads 2 is the part with the sponge. Now, we can see that upper is heavier and downward is lighter. Right. But we can see that one goes up and one goes down. And our assumption of this is that the downward part, the weight loss in the sponge one is so little that it could barely be measured by our meter. Right. So that's what happens. Right. So the second experiment setup is the bond tube. And it's literally the same thing as that. Right, so this is our data. So we compare both weight and height. This is the height comparison. And next one. This one is the weight comparison. So we have 2 different heights of balls, and then 2 different weights of balls, and we see how the graph goes. And if we have time, we'll explain it later. And so conclusion and real life corrections. So conclusion. What will affect the phenomenon? The opening of the neck will affect the phenomenon, as A is one of the key things in the weight of falling sand, as the density of the medium and the height of the release, as shown in the theories, is also keys to the weight and the distribution of the fallen sand. And the release mechanics will all contribute to the scrambled data that we see before. Now, my next page. So, Roland models is something created between basic theories and experiments. And so basically, this is where we talk about where the fleck of sand. Basically, this is where we talk about how the experiment and the theory is different from what actually happens in the experiments. So there are a few things to consider. First of all is any fleck of sand, the sand has been moving before it even touches the neck. Right, that's the first thing. And so it will not be a free-falling motion from the neck. And the second thing is that the cylinder of the falling sand is actually, the density it's not even. The density is lower at the bottom and higher at the top. Right, and the increment of the height of the falling sand, as I said, the height will pile up. And the fluid dynamics, the faster it flows.
Please make a short conclusion.
Okay, so basically there are 2 more real-life models, but that's just that for now. So thank you.
You've got 2 minutes preparation for a simple act. It's time for B team to have some questions to team A.
Right, so you did mention some points about Newton's second law of when it's spinning. Now, right, let's go into the second question first. Did you consider heating the disk over time, as in when the disk is spinning, it's heating an area instead of a point on the disk? Did you consider that? So
I didn't choose the Newton second law.
So
because I think that's my definition. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Then let's go into the second question. Did you consider heating the disk over time, like it's an area instead of just a point?
Yeah. So that's why 4 is bigger than 3 and 5. Because 3, the radius of the 3 is too small. that the fire easily mating all paramagnetic. Okay.
Then the third question, the radiation law you presented at the very first beginning. I did not see any more mentions of it afterwards. Did you use it to calculate which of the regions that does not have magneticity?
Yeah, I use the radiation law because I want to make you understand why sometimes the nickel disk will not smoothly, not stay in motion sometimes. Yeah, so, because it will, yeah, the radiation.
So did you actually calculate how much the difference in magneticity was giving it the angular speed? Or did you talk? Like, did you know exactly like? Wait, what? Sorry.
Now it's time for Team A to ask some first question.
I need to ask you something. Please turn to the graph. Turn to the reference graph.
Reference graph? Yes. So.
Can you explain it again? I didn't understand what you're doing.
So basically, the first region that's there is the sand falling below the neck, but it hasn't hit the bottom of the hourglass, so we can't measure its weight. So there's a weight loss right there. The second stage is when the sand hits the bottom, and there's a significant increase in weight, as we see. And then the third stage is the sand's piling up, and there's still momentum given by the sand. The weight of the falling sand is countered by the force the force given by momentum, the sand hitting the bottom of the hourglass. And therefore it stays like constantly, and somehow a little bit increment at the end. That's that stage. There's the function that I wrote about it. And then the first stage is the
okay. Then why the 1 and the 2 between it will a slope?
The spike?
Why?
Right. You mean that spike in region 1?
Yeah, why?
Right. So we look at the video of the reference, and we believe it's the sand hitting the platform that's holding the sand. So when sand's falling down, it hits the bottom, and it creates increasing weight.
Sorry,
but the
time's up. Two teams got 2 minutes for preparation for the discussion. Now it's time for 2 teams to have a discussion. First 4 minutes for the discussion of Curie Point Engine, and the next 4 minutes for the wait time.
Right, so the first question, have you tried to use an evenly spread out magnet field instead of using just a magnet? In a magnet, the magnetic field of magnets is curved along the magnetic lines that was given out by, if you get like a magnet here and the lines would be like this,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Have you tried to use it evenly spread out?
Yeah. In the next page.
Alright, so in that the magnet field given off by the magnet is still curved. I mean, well, alright. So the lines given off by the magnet represents the direction of the magnet field of the magnet, right? Alright, so let's just move on to the next question. So so this is your experiment of shifting the magnet to the side, right? Alright, so does it, as compared to putting the magnet in the middle, does it spin faster or does it spin slower?
Actually, when the distance is a constant,
The angular velocity stays the same.
yeah.
Alright, so I mean, wait, let's get this again. So if I have a disk right here and you put a magnet here versus here, the mag does it change or
Yeah, it will. So I made them fix the same point, so it won't affect just the direction from yeah.
what do you mean?
I didn't change their position, but I changed their angle.
Well, see, if there's a disk, if you changing the angle versus changing the position of the magnet is two different things, because when you shift the magnet, the magnetic field given off by the magnet shifts also. So it's different from putting the angle of the wire.
That will different. So I put data here.
Okay, so it actually, what? Yeah, I mean, shift it to the side. So does it, wait, I don't quite understand that. What do you mean by like, oh, right. So if you move it to the side, does it spins faster? Or is it like the directly shooting at the disk? Yeah, which
You mean which side? Is this side or this side?
it's a circular disk. It's basically the same thing.
So which side do you mean?
Wait, so what you did is you have a disk here and you shift the magnet, the direction of the magnet, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so which angle has the fastest
And here and for example, and I told them I told them again to the conclusion. Okay.
Time for the discussion of waiting time.
The normal force to answer that.
Okay. Please turn to your setup.
Setup, please.
Okay.
There's two setups. The second.
Your full sensor.
Alright, so.
Do you consider the response time and how to calculate it?
This one. So I mean the blue thing on top, right? So basically what it's calculating is like it's an overtime measurement. It's not once. It's not a thing I pull it once. It gives me a number. It measures it over time.
Wait a second. And please draw your experience, but because I can see the inside.
Okay, so.
Thank you.
So basically it's a box. So it's a hook.
I am here.
So there's a hook that hooks it onto the force gauge.
Okay.
And then there's a box here that represents the hourglass. And this is a funnel that holds the beam, and this is supporting the platform. And so when we release the platform, the beam falls down.
Oh, wait. What the way you use to release the.
Okay, so let's look at the picture over there. So there's a string that ties it to there, to the top, and we burn the string and the platform falls down.
Is that effect, does the platform won't effect, when you move the platform, you may effect the same,
well,
right?
as we see in the data of our experiment, the fall, if it's a platform, it's going to get hit by bees or sand. And it's going to get hit by.
When you use the theory of the Newton's second law, do you consider the collection or impulsive force?
Yes. Right. So I'm just going to explain it right here. So what I wrote is. So this part, the rest, right? Anyways.
The impulsive, I mean the impulsive is down here.
It falls as it bouncing back.
Yeah.
It reflects. All right. So so that is what we get in theory in real life. One of the real life corrections is I'm trying to explain that this will make the data of the experiment scramble. So we put a layer of sponge at the end, trying to let it just fall there and stick. Well, my other designs of the experiment would be putting glue on the bottom, so it sticks on there. But we haven't done that yet, and so for now it's just a sponge to cushion the fall, so it won't bounce up.
So that's your device looks like.
Yes.
But your graph before is like it's like that.
Oh, so this is like an analogy of the hourglass, and so basically this part and this part and this part is this part.
Okay, time's up. You have 3 minutes for the preparation for a conclusion. Okay, time's up. First, for the team B, to make a conclusion, you have 2 minutes.
So I'll just continue without the PowerPoint. Right. So for the discussion of the Curie Point Engine, we talked about the heating of the region affecting the force of the magnetivity, as well as the radius of the disk affecting the angular velocity of the disk, and the angle shifts of the magnet and the shift in magnetic field. How does it affect the disk? And we also asked whether they had tried like a even magnetic field, but we didn't get quite a consensus on that. And well, I guess that's for Curie Point Engine. And so for the waiting time question, we talked about how the experiment was set up as well. They were very detailed to look at our project, from the force gauge where it measures a moment of time, to whether it's how the release mechanic works, as well as to the bouncing of how to calculate the bouncing of the balls hitting the bottom, and they were very close on this part. We also alright, so like a few things I learned for our project today is we probably have to redesign our experimental setup so to stop the balls from bouncing. We also have to make our theories clearer so other people can understand as well. and as well as building a graph to represent the theory, instead of just making one off the references. And so yeah, but for the Curie Point Engine, I think they had a pretty thorough structure, and they had a pretty detailed and attentive project, and yeah, I think they did such a good job. I mean, yeah. Okay,
time for Team A to make a 2 minutes conclusion. About the discussion of the wing time, I think their equipment not grow very well because
I think their equipment not grow very well because when they release the plant, they might be they might be shaking the sand, so it might be affect the motion of the sand, and their theory is not completely, and they didn't consider the collision and the impulsive force and the internal motion of the hourglass, and they didn't consider the friction. Their assumption is not fit on the experiment, and their results have a huge difference to your experiment. Yeah. They didn't consider the bouncing rate. Yeah.
Okay, it's time. There are 5 minutes for jury to ask. Thank you, that's mine. Okay, 5 minutes for you to ask questions.
因为我英文没有像各位这么溜哦，我怕引发误解，所以我直接用中文提问了哈。那我想问一下 A 队，你们那个转动惯量那个是计算出来的，还是你们测量出来的？等一下我一起问完再。那我想请问 B 队，就是说，当你们沙漏在漏的时候，它最后会形成一个圆锥，这个圆锥最后那个沙子会再往下掉，这个的部分你们有考虑到吗？
有那个，
那是不是先请 A 队回答？
哦，我们是真的有计算出它的 acceleration， 就计算它的脚架速度。
我要问的是角动量，那个转动惯量，抱歉，转动惯量 I。
我们就直接就是m平方除以2。
OK。
对。
可是我刚刚看你们的数据，好像你们的 I 是不一样的，是不是？
因为它是 m 嘛，那它是 cm， 所以就想说改一下单位，它是公式单位。
谢谢。
那个就是在首先就是我们在讨论那个理论图形为什么它会在0点之上的时候，那个部分就在解释说，因为它堆下来是圆锥状，所以它的高度会越来越它的高度会减少，那所以它的算出来的正向力就会比较大。然后接下来就是那是理论部分，然后再修正我们原来就是 real life models 的那个部分的时候，我讨论到就是因为不同的沙子，就是有些沙子它堆起来是圆锥状，有些它堆起来就是平的，所以就是那个部分还要再看沙子本身好不好进行。然后我们在这个阶段还没有做到那边。
那
我有问那个 A 队，觉得你们就是有说，就是有指出用力矩等于 IR 法那种公式，我觉得非常好。然后想问一下，就是说你们有没有试着去控制一个变因，然后来试着看其他两个不一样的关系，来探究说它用火烧盘子的时候会改变什么物理量？就是说，简单来说就是控制一个变因，比如说控制 I， 或来看其他两个物理量的关系，或者是对，想要听听看你的说法，这样子，对。
是有控制那个 I 啊，就是除了那个 radius 的变因，其他都是用，就其他都是用，就是固定的是用来的，是用 I 的，
所以就，OK， 好。
关于那个关于力学计算部分，因为它有一部分是那个靠等于 IR 法啊，所以就是想说转动惯量跟半径有关嘛，所以就直接。然后，所以说我就只探讨在那个数据，就是在那个就是在半径不一样的状态下去算它的力矩。
好，然后问一下 B， 就是说，因为你一开始列了很多牛顿第二定律式，有探讨这个变质量的问题，就是说，那你可不可以用？因为我看列很多数据，哪一个数据是最可以辅助说明那个理论公式？对，或者哪一张数据图？简单说，你可以用什么变数？对。
主要是我觉得就是后面就是我们有谈到就是做重量，就是第二个 experimental setup 的时候有比较重量跟高度的那两个 graph 啊，那个 graph 很明显就是前面有很大的 weight loss， 就很大的 weight loss， 然后撞到之后，因为它有部分反弹的关系，所以它除了第一个 weight loss 以外，它反弹再掉下来的话还会产生更大，所以它其实就是那个图形应该长这样。就是这些 quivers， 我猜是因为它打下去的时候，然后那个纸箱它在抖动，所以会影响，就是它是周期线会影响那个 measure 出来的结果这样。而我们还在就是测量那个周期，然后看它实际上影响会多大。但是这边就是weight loss， 然后就是这个 peak 是因为就是这个 peak 应该是因为打到挡板之类的，然后这个 peak 是比较大，就是一群竹子一起打到那个箱子底，然后这后面这一个部分就是那个最后一个就是达到所引起的那个这项液体是的，所以对。
那还有老师要提问吗？如果没有的话，那就请老师准备评分，然后我们要赶快接下来一场。
我可以再问你一个问题。
好，那请计划。
因为刚刚那个一跟他讲，最后一颗打下去的时候，所以那个鱼会上来。
对，其实就是
因为你们好像是对称的，所以最后一颗应该是还是在面来，对。
什么意思？
就是说最后一颗掉落的时候，它应该是在最高点。那最高点理论上，它从最高点到最高点应该是没有所谓的掉落这个问题。那个 analogy 就是它只是一个示意图而已，实际上就是在真实的沙漏情况下，就是我们在说我们做实验前不是有一个 assumptions 吗？那其中一个就是那个沙子不会叠积起来，
所以就是它掉落距永远都是一样的。所以我们看到那个实验的图啊，那个中间的一长段，它是在0点的，它不是在0之上，所以它没有沙子堆下去高度会变高的问题这样子。然后对。所以那只是意识图，实际上就是我在做实验的时候。
我要请教是你刚刚回答的问题，就是说你讲最后这个 peak 高起来的时候，就是因为最后一颗沙子掉落。
对。
所以我要问你说，最后一颗沙子有掉落？对。因为你的是锥形瓶，所以掉完，你说最后一颗沙子应该在正中央嘛？不晓得我这样表达是不是有表达到？
在正中央是指说那个锥形嘛，所以是你说这样。
它是从上面的。你2个倒影嘛，哈，所以你从上面到下面，应该理论上应该是没有所谓的高度落差。这是我的。你讲。我不晓得你有没有理解我的问题。
就是我刚刚是话说这个，就是它会这个。
对。
这只是意识图，实际上我们在做实验的时候，那个纸箱啊，它的漏斗永远都在上面，然后它有移动跟。然后所以这是我的实验装置啊。然后它的沙就是一些珠永远装在这里，然后它永远是掉这个高度。对所以刚刚那个画的只是意识图，不是实际上的情况。实际上的漏斗也不可能就是装在，它一定会卡住。就是它装到满了，一定要卡。这个是。
好，那么现在请教授们。第一个是 Team A 的。
对啊，我说直接可以讲对。A 嘛。
8分跟9分，好，谢谢 Team A。那接下来是 Team B。是9分跟8分，谢谢。
应该怎么来？